Good afternoon, everyone. Um, my name is Veronica Villagrana,
I'm Tamyke Edwards, and
and
we're going,
today,
oh, sorry. Today we're going to be talking about student-centered coaching. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm an instructional and English language development coach in Pasadena Unified School District. I work at
and
an elementary school, yeah, at a TK through 5 school.
I am an English learner instructional coach uh, that also shares instructional coach title at a Willard IB in Pasadena, and it is an international baccalaureate school and a magnet school.
Yes. Okay, so let's get into this. So I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Dianne Sweeny and her student-centered coaching, um, but just the basics of it before we get into it is that student-centered coaching is about setting specific targets for students that are rooted in standards in the curriculum. That's like the most important part, that it's focused on standards in the curriculum and working collaboratively to ensure the targets are met. So rather than focusing on how teachers feel or the acquisition of a few simple skills, we're going to measure our impact based on student learning. So really quickly, you can put in the chat or you can unmute. I'm just wondering, what does coaching look like at your site or in your district? Um, has it been defined? And are all of your coaches working toward the same goal? So maybe you can just think about that for a second and then put it in the chat, because I know that for Veronica and myself, our position was called curriculum resource teacher and language development resource teacher. And then we went through a period where we learned about transformational coaching, and then our positions were renamed and we reapplied and here we are. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys.
Okay, yes, thank you. And I also in the chat added a Google Doc. And so for this presentation, you have the option of either typing in the Google chat or actually jotting down in your own notebook, whatever you feel comfortable with.
Oh, great. So maybe I see, Rosie, that you've recently defined it and you're taking part in student-centered coaching. So feel free to chime in whenever you want. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, this is still a process that we're still learning ourselves, but it's good to be on this journey together and then to share it with you. Okay. Oh, during induction, this is discussed. Regina Power said it's kind of like the Wild West out there. All right. Thank you for sharing. Okay. So there are 7 core practices in student centered coaching. Um, the first is to organize coaching through cycles. The second is to set a standard based goal for coaching cycles. The third is to unpack the standards into student friendly learning targets. Those are where you're using language like I can do this, I can do that. Um, use student evidence to co-plan instruction. So you're going to be using diagnostic assessments, IRIs, any of those kind of tools. You're not just going to be like, hey, I want everyone to get better at writing without having some data behind it. Um, then a lot of times you will co-teach with a focus on effective instructional practices, and there are several ways of co-teaching. I don't think we're going to get to those today, but if you're interested in learning more, then Dianne Sweeney's website is really awesome. She has a lot of resources there for you. Then you will measure the impact of coaching on student and tutor learning. We're going to share a tool that you can use for that. That's really awesome, that we started using last year and it was very effective, at least for my coaching. And then finally, you're going to partner with your school leader, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk a little bit about this part, because I think it's really important. In order to have a good rapport with your teachers, there has to be a really clear line between like you as a coach working together with your teacher and your administrator as the evaluator. And you don't want those kind of like to mix, because then you will lose the trust that you could be building with your teachers.
Great. Thank you. And that brings us to student-centered coaching. So if you look at this continuum, I hope you're able to see it very clear. But Dianne Sweeny has a continuum and it asks you, where are you in the continuum? So it's most of us begin in the relationship-driven coaching. And a lot of the times we find ourselves not moving from there because it's the area where most of us feel comfortable. So we want you guys to look at this continuum and either, like we said before, jot in your notebook or the document that we shared. We'd like to see where you're at. So choose an area where you are already working in student-driven coaching column, and then maybe reflect. And it could be very brief, and then hopefully we have an opportunity to talk about it together. Dianne Sweeny says, we always want to move towards student-centered. And that's where she says the most growth happens. So if you take an opportunity right now, take a few minutes, read through it, and think about where you're at. And you could maybe type it in the chat, in the document, or jot it down. And if you have any questions, go ahead and type them in the chat.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes, let's.
Share it. Okay.
Oh, yeah, let me go ahead and put the link there.
Then they'll be able to read it more clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. Makes sense.
Oh, our trusty helper Daisy is already putting it in for us. Thank you,
Oh,
Daisy.
thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Oh, we have to change the settings. I'll do that.
Oh, I thought I did already.
Just a second. Oh, it says anyone on. Oh, never mind.
It doesn't?
I think it's just to view, but not to edit.
Got it.
Okay, you should be good to go now, guys. Thanks for bringing that to our attention.
Great. Thank you. So should we allow, just for the interest of time, should we allow like 4 more minutes?
Maybe they can show us with their fingers, like the students do. How many more minutes do you need? 2. I got a 2. Thank you, Jennifer.
Great. 2 works. Great.
Oh, the doc.
The
Veronica,
document?
yeah.
Oh, I'll
locked.
reshare it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's locked.
I see some people on there, but
okay.
I'll share it again. Thank you. Okay, I hope you guys are able to type in. I do see you on there.
see people on
This is Karen. I was not able to access it, so I don't know if others, I came in late, I'm sorry, but I wasn't able to access the document, so it could be some others are having, don't have edit access either.
Oh, I see.
For what document?
It is the student-led coaching document that was in the chat.
Oh, okay.
And I apologize, I came in late, so I'm
No, thank you.
I just changed it. I apologize. Thank you.
I've only done that about 100 times, so I totally get it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, with that said, while some of you are typing in, would some of you want to share where you're at in the continuum?
I would love to share.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Because I'm looking at that chart, and I'm not kidding. We could check off all of the relationship driven coaching, all of it, and it has been one of my frustrations, right? As a librarian, I love evidence and data, but that's just not where we are. So wow, how? And I know that we are using Elena Aguilar's work.
Coaching.
Yeah. So I need to incorporate, because I'm involved with induction as well. So we need to actually start moving.
Right.
Yes.
Direction.
Thank you for sharing that, Regina, because when this document was shared with us, I was glad that it wasn't the first couple of years I'd been coaching, because I was sitting totally in relationship driven and I was nowhere else. And I think part of it was just, when you first get to a new school site, there's a culture there and you're trying to find your way. So I was just like, hey, look at these materials I have for you. Who needs some supplies, and like not trying to ruffle any feathers, but really, like Veronica said, you don't really make any growth or change at your school site or for your students if you don't move to the left.
Absolutely. And by the end of today, you will have a lot of resources that I think you're going to find useful. Okay, so moving on, we are moving on to
Okay, so one thing that I think is really helpful when you're setting up a coaching cycle is to make sure you have an agreement about what you want to accomplish. So this tool it's in this slide deck, so you'll have access to it. It really kind of focuses you and your teacher that you're going to be working with on what your goals are and what you plan to accomplish. So it kind of like gives you some idea about what your focus is, what is our goal for student learning, and then really how you're going to work together. So because I was telling you earlier, there's co-teaching options that you can use. There's also like where you can help the teacher collect student evidence. So for instance, she'll be doing the lesson and you'll just be in her room taking notes on what the kids are doing. Not, and very clearly telling her, look, I'm not looking at you. I'm just seeing how your students are reacting to what you're doing. And then also talking about how you'll reflect. And then really one of the most important parts, I think, is how you will approach co-planning, because I'm kind of a type A person. And once I get an idea, I'm all, hey, let's do this and we can do this. And I have the whole plan already set out. But as the coach, I'm supposed to take a back seat and let the person I'm coaching lead the way and figure out what they need help with and how I can support them. I mean, there are tools we can use like questioning and active listening to kind of get them to a place we might want them to go. But it's really important to make sure that we're co-planning and we're like feeding off of each other, and it's not just me telling them what they should or need to do.
Yes, and I realized that the computer was stuck a little bit and we skipped the questions. So,
Okay.
and you talked about them, Tamyke, but if they want to have a second to type in if they have anything to reflect on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe,
So
oh
that
wait, do you want to go back and see if they have any responses to those questions? Yeah,
sure.
about how, do you guys approach planning with, do you already have a system for how you approach planning with and supporting your teachers during their coaching cycles? Would you like to share? Because I'm always, especially in this virtual environment, I feel like in some ways it's easier to meet with people that you already know. If you have like newer people on your campus, it's kind of harder to initiate those things. So if anyone wants to share, oh, Regina, I'm gonna have to get your email so that we can have some sharing and networking together.
Yeah, we need help. Thank you.
And we're happy to help you. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Anyone
Okay,
else? Okay.
great. Okay.
Oh, that's really good. So Rosie said that she kind of approaches it by saying, if you had the perfect classroom, what would it look like? What's preventing you from being there? That's great. That's very powerful questions.
Mm-hmm. And we find ourselves like if you know how to approach questioning in a way where your questions have to lead to more, right? So they have to kind of be open-ended. So tell me why, or questions that they will say, okay, well, they'll start opening up and it all has to do with trust. Okay, so results-based coaching tool. This brings us to what I think is one of the most important resources that you will get out of here with. This tool actually allows us to jot down or to keep track of information that you and your teacher will either co-plan or meet in your first initial meeting, right? So what does it do? It's going to measure impact. And like we said, the coaching cycle will most likely be like 4 to 6 weeks. It could be at the end of a unit. So from beginning to end of unit, but it doesn't necessarily have to do that. Dianne Sweeny does say it does not have to be 4 to 6 weeks. This is something that you can come up with what you think fits best. The coaching cycle is content driven and it tracks progress across coaching cycles and then how we use it. So as I show you, you'll have a better idea, but it's where learning targets are established. And you begin with a pre-assessment, and it could be formative assessment data. She explains in one of her videos, and it'll be in the resources also, that sometimes you know what a child knows by simply giving them one problem. It could be one problem and that child just needs help. You can use that as data too. It does not have to be formative assessments, but you can use those. And then you look at how many students are proficient and then how many students are not, and you take those percentages, and it's just really focused on data. So it can be an open-ended assessment also, and just asking yourself, what do you want your kids to know? Or what do you want them to do? And so as I show you this document, you will see what I mean and why it's so valuable. Okay, so
one thing I wanted to add to that is, I don't know how many of you are using the workshop model, and the conferring part of it is really great for these kinds of like decision making for what you might want to do, like a skills group on. So there's a lot of just day-to-day things that are happening in your classroom that you can use as assessments to help plan for these coaching cycles.
yes. Okay, so as you can see, this is the results-based coaching tool. And if you were able to pull it up on your own, maybe you could see it a little bigger. But as you can see there, it's standards-based. So today you'll have an opportunity to actually look at data and begin to, as if you were planning with a teacher. So we'll do some role playing or some pretending. So as you can see, can someone tell me what they notice? And go ahead and unmute yourself and just let me know what you notice, or anything that you may be doing, or how you find this valuable. Would someone like to share? Okay. So what I notice here is that you have to have standards. You have to have those students and learning targets. And it asks you for number of students and percentages. And as you go down the columns, this is how your cycle goes, right? So you'll talk about what the teacher will be doing, what the coach will do. And then as you go along and as you meet with your teacher, and how you see and track student learning. And this, I feel, in my experience, is that it allows the teacher to really be more at ease. Not only have you already built relationships, but it also allows her to say, oh, it's not about me, it's about the students. But in all, it does have to do with teaching, but it puts more attention on the students. What will the students do too? And
it makes it more equitable, because it's not like just the teacher doing work, because it's also saying what we have to do as coaches. And I found that this was a really good tool for me to stay focused, because I kind of tend to get all like go off on tangents. Like we'll look at some data, some things will happen during the instruction, and I'll say, oh, hey, and then we'll go off on this tangent or that tangent. But doing this really made it clear, like what strategies the teacher was going to use, what I was going to do to support, what the teacher was going to learn, and if what we did was effective by how the percentage of students that improved.
And I do have to say that Dianne Sweeny says that it's about the student growth will be anywhere from high 80% to 90% when this coaching cycle is done well. So it has she has high expectations. And I actually did a coaching cycle last year on a reading inventory, just reading, and those students were able to grow. And it really holds teachers, coaches, and students accountable. Okay.
All right, so I kind of touched on this earlier, but my question for you is, how do you initiate a coaching cycle? So I know at some school sites, the administrator will observe a teacher in action, and then they'll come to you and say, oh, I'm seeing these things, or I'm not seeing these things. I need you to coach this teacher. While at least right now in our district, because we're focused on transformational coaching, it's more voluntary. Like no one's forced to be coached. It's encouraged. And what I usually do to encourage it is like whatever our initiatives are for the year or the semester, like for instance, we got a new social studies curriculum this year. So I would list in a Google form, like, these are the things that we're focusing on this year. Are any of these of interest of you to do a coaching cycle? But I'm wondering, is there any other way that you guys do this, initiate coaching cycles? I'd love to hear some feedback on that. Okay. So Rosie's saying that new teachers are required to go through 2 coaching cycles. Some sites have menus that all teachers need to complete, and coaching cycles are part of it. That's interesting.
Nice.
Anyone else? Like, how do you get teachers, especially in this virtual situation we're in right now, to engage in a coaching cycle? I'm not seeing any hands go up, or now I know how secondary school teachers feel. Kidding. All right, so Dianne Sweeny does provide a check. Oh, okay.
Sorry, can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Yeah, sorry, I'm driving. That's why I'm picking up my daughter. But one thing that has really worked for me is making sure the teachers come to me. I feel like when I engage them in a coaching cycle, it doesn't tend to go as well because it wasn't from something that they're interested in growing in. So I totally, as much as I can, unless my administrator wants me to, I totally leave that up to the teacher to approach me for a coaching cycle or for help in general.
Okay, thank you for sharing that, especially while you're driving. I appreciate it. And I see some other people have put some things in the chat. So, so Ronnie's saying that next year, all of the sites will have a coach and then they'll decide with the principal how to initiate the cycles. And a lot of you are saying it has to do with new teachers and induction. And that's great, but I just wonder about the teachers who we've had on board for a long time. Like, how are we reaching them and helping them grow their practice?
Yes, and I'd like to add that sometimes that is the most difficult thing to do. And I find myself approaching my teachers, like walking in there, sitting, looking, asking questions, and then maybe leaving feedback, or in passing just saying, well, I notice. And they'll sometimes just break down and say, oh my goodness, this is not what I intended. Is that what you got from it? And then there I will say, well, I can help you with that. Or let's meet. Can you meet after school? And sometimes it'll be just in passing, but any little time that they may want to open up to you, I'll lead to those questions that will invite them to ask for help. Because you're right, it's almost like they need to be wanting the help and asking for the help.
Right. So there's really 3 stages. And I think judging from what you guys are saying in the chat, that a lot of it is either through induction or a partnership with the principal, which is what Dianne Sweeny suggests. But I also think that what Patricia, I think her name was saying is very valid. And I agree with that. Like, when you push a coaching cycle onto someone, they're usually very resistant, or they don't fully commit to it. So you don't get as much out of it as you would if they were the ones who were initiating it. Or at least, like, even if you just start out like with the survey, like some people have said, then that's a jumping off point. So yes, this tool is here for you guys to use and to refer back to when you're thinking about getting your coaching cycles up and running.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so real world application. This is where we're going to look at some data, and I just blocked out the students, but it's real data. And so we want you to think about what questions you could ask, or what co-teaching methods you might use, or how else can you gather data. Like I said, we have at our school, we have Fontes and Pinnell. So we have the IRI, and we focus on making, and we have, like Tamyke said, we are a school where we have our library for students and we do small group instruction. So we want to really dive into that data, and you would use that tool. So let's look at that data. If you're able, I created this so that I can type into it. If you're interested in having that, I can maybe share it with you later so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I know you can also use Kami to be able to type it in. I don't know if you know about that extension on Google, but you're able to type in any document. But this is actually, I wish I could do that with you today, but I didn't know if you had Kami. But if you look at this data, this Excel document actually gives us percentages on who's on grade level and who isn't. So looking at that data, what do you think in the standards, right? Knowing that this is a 3rd grade class, what would students do? And what learning targets might you really dive into? And what number of students are, and it asks you, emerging, developing, or who is on benchmark? So it would be, you can always change it around to work with your data. But just as you see that data there, I want you to take a few minutes and maybe come up with what your learning target would be. What would you work with your teacher on? So you're the coach. What would be the first steps? And what would be your responsibility? So let's take a few minutes with that. And meanwhile, if you have any questions, you could type them in the chat.
Nancy was wondering if you could link us to the reading data page in the slides, like that one page, so they can.
Oh,
Do you need to see it more closely, Nancy? Or
okay. Would you like me to put the slide in the chat again? Okay, very good. Let's see. See if I'm able to do it now that I'm presenting. I'm trying. It's not. See if that works there. Yep. Yes. Okay, and it looks like we're at our 5-minute mark. Would one of you guys like to answer any of those questions? Like, what would be your first steps? Because we're running out of time, we would really like to see if you have any first steps for us or any feedback on this.
Okay, well, I'm involved with induction, and I'm going to have our first order of business over the summer when we're reviewing our induction handbook to actually read the leadership committee, the leadership team, read Sweeny's work. That would be a great place to start.
Great, that's
Right?
wonderful. That is wonderful. And we also added her videos and all the resources that we found on the last page. But she is wonderful.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
What I like about her is that she really just talks to us as if she knows us. So you'll find in her videos how she explains everything just as you're face to face with her.
Well, and she's evidence-based, evidence-driven.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
great.
Absolutely. Okay. So the resources are there for you guys. We wanted to have enough time to show you one of her videos, just a little clip, but we ran out of time for that. We have a feedback form that we have to, do we have a link for a feedback form?
I think that she'll put it in the chat, but how many minutes do we have left? Only 5? Because I thought our video was like 4. Maybe we could just let them type their questions while they see the exit video part.
That would be
great. 3 minutes left.
Okay, that would be great. Okay, so I'm gonna try to start it where we're supposed to have it. We're looking at the minutes, okay? We said it was right about 6, right?
I don't know how long your video is, but we have 3 minutes left.
Yeah, it's like 3
We'll
minutes.
we'll start it there.
We want to see information shared about your
Are you
topic.
seeing it?
Interesting to readers.
No,
We want to see some strategies done to do a little research.
it's okay. They can watch it on their own. Does anyone have any final questions or thoughts in our last 3 minutes? We really appreciate you coming and sharing this time with us, and really for giving us so much grace, like especially at the beginning, we're like, whoa, what's going on? So thank you guys.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for participating. It means a lot.
Okay, we have a
Which one
question.
is the video? Sorry, Veronica, which one is the video link?
The video is the very first one. The very first one will take you to her entire resource page, and the first video on there is just so full of information.
And then there's also on this the 12th slide, there's some videos and stuff there too. There's actually
And-
videos on a couple of slides. When you go through it, you'll see.
Yes, and one of the things, if you don't want to reinvent the wheel and if you want that typable document, I can go ahead and share it. So you're able to type into it. And if you need if you want to network with us, just let us know. We're available.
Yes.
Oh, before we go, is there a possibility, which of Sweeney's books would you recommend to read first? Because there's a lot.
There is. She mentions it in her tools. Let's see. She has one of them that let me see if I could find the title for you.
Okay.
Right here. Let me see.
I think one of our first, the quote came straight from one of her books okay, it is called Leading Student-Centered Coaching.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Yep,
I'm
I will be
inspired.
logging in
Thank
for
you.
now.